I'll tell you what. Fight this dude.
A fake toss. Purdy looking. Wide open man. It's Juwan Jennings.
So many guys. Some guys that come to mind immediately.
A kid who got no college offers coming out of the state of Florida, contacted over 100 college coaches until he finally walked on at Florida A&M. He's back to return.
How about Xavier Smith? How about this guy just producing day in, day out, Kyron Williams?
It's fun coming to work with you guys, man. Let's keep rolling, all right? Hands on three, 1, 2, 3.
How fitting is it that this incredible finale to what I would consider to be a perfect modern NFL game finishes off with Brandon Aiyuk getting his clock cleaned in what was already an incredible sequence of events. This game right here, week 3, Rams versus 49ers, has all the ingredients of a classic game. But before I dive into why this game is a certified hood classic, let's get back to what brought you here in the first place. The title, the thumbnail pointing directly to Brandon Aiyuk, the huge mistake that the 49ers made. Let's start there. I don't want to come across as a Brandon Aiyuk hater, but I definitely wouldn't say I'm his number one fan. He does just sort of fit that stereotypical wide receiver 1 mold of someone who's a little bit cocky, confident, and likes the attention to be on them generally, which, by the way, isn't the demise of a player. It's actually something you can look for in a lot of receivers as a positive trait, but it isn't always my cup of tea, especially when it's handled this way. See, I didn't grow up being obsessed with guys like OBJ or the beef OBJ had with Josh Norman. No, I grew up with a hard-nosed, defensive-minded focus on the trenches coaching system, I mean father, who taught me more about that group, the trenches, than anything else. I have trouble connecting with receivers in general with football when it comes to coaching or just watching or whatever. Receivers, I don't fully relate to as much. So when all of the contract talk started with Brandon Aiyuk and all the stuff that he was doing, everything that was happening on social media, only one thing came to my mind. Napoleon's invasion of Russia in 1812. Listen, I know this is a football channel, but I got a lot of other things I find interesting that I need to get out to, such as Napoleon's attempt to invade Russia in 1812, sending over 600,000 men into Russian territory. Napoleon was at his peak at the time. He dominated most of Europe at this point. He had an ice cream named after him. He starred in a really cool movie that's mostly realistic to high school. He was honestly on top of the world. When our boy Napoleon sent his homies into Russia, it was like, yo, these dudes are toast, but he was shocked to find out that Russia was quite cold. See, Russia just played the long game with Napoleon's crew, freezing and starving them out, leaving them no supplies at all. Napoleon sent 600,000 men and only around 100,000 returned. Napoleon thought for sure that this was going to be a clean mission, in and out, take over Russia, catch a few ballet shows, fight a few bears, a third Russian stereotype for rule of 3, but no. Napoleon failed. So what does all of this have to do with Brandon Aiyuk? As in, what does Napoleon's attempted invasion of Russia in 1812 have to do with Brandon Aiyuk? What does this have to do with Brandon Aiyuk? Oh, right, yes, Brandon Aiyuk in the offseason made his life way more difficult than it needed to be and added a lot more unnecessary drama to his contract negotiation. I'm all for guys getting paid, and I'm all for them holding out until they do. Just look at how that's going for Hassan Reddick. But so much of his behavior this offseason was entirely unnecessary, and I know it left a sour taste in the fans' mouths, especially when he isn't performing this well into the season, and especially when he signed the exact same contracts they offered him 2 months prior to all of the horse hockey, or monkey business, fish shenanigans, And I'm not just looking at Aiyuk to blame here. The 49ers have some questions to answer for sure. You draft Ricky Pearsall in the first round, who has a very similar skill set to Brandon Aiyuk, to obviously be his replacement, and then let Aiyuk scare you into signing a 4-year deal with him when he isn't even the focal point of the offense. Keep in mind, this is the 49ers, one of the most loaded teams in the league. Brandon Aiyuk has always been, and even more now than ever, has been a 3rd to 4th option on this team. Realistically, it goes Christian, Debo, whichever one of those two. It's tough to say that a running back is the one, but I'd say Debo and Christian, and then George Kittle, and then Aiyuk finds room in there somewhere. But, you know, sometimes Juwan Jennings gets in there too. It genuinely seemed like they had no plan on how to handle the draft or how to handle Brandon Aiyuk's contract situation, and the whole thing has just sort of folded in on itself. Well, I mean, not really like folded in on itself. They only have 1 loss on the season. They're going to be fine, but still, this 49ers-Rams game was Brandon Aiyuk's time to shine, to show why he deserved that contract he got in the offseason, to show why he could act the way he did about wanting to receive a new contract and then get that contract. This is the game right here. Debo Samuel out, Christian McCaffrey out, those other 2 options I just talked about that are ahead of him, both of them out. He should easily have had 10 catches, 120 plus yards, a touchdown or 2. But instead, as I mentioned, Juwan Jennings takes over and has the game of his career. And without a superstar presence late in the game, the 49ers lose this despite Brock Purdy having one of the cleanest stat lines of the season. So am I saying that paying Brandon Aiyuk top-end money on a 4-year deal was a bad idea? I don't know. It's a bit early to tell. We're only a few games into the season, but isn't it alarming that he's making you question it this far? I do believe in the fact that if he had handled this offseason differently and still got a contract just without all the other shenanigans, horse hockey, without all the other hoopla and without all the other rascality, that people would look at how his season has gone so far a bit differently. They would look at it with some nuance. But you lost that nuance right about here.
Probably a Niner uniform. I mean, if not a Niners uniform, probably a Washington Commander uniform. If not a Washington Commander uniform, probably a Steelers uniform.
Oh yeah, back to the legendary classic game I was talking about. Let me set the scene. It's week 3, an interdivision game with 2 of the brightest minds at the coaching position in the league. It was established as a dogfight from the beginning and thrusted further into that direction due to all the injuries from both sides of the field. Yes, both the Rams and the 49ers were dealing with a lot of injuries, and when you have teams playing each other, both with as many injuries as the Niners and the Rams had, it really comes down to 2 things. Who wants it more, and which head coach can get scrappier. And Sean McVay showed he is a professional scrapper, scrappy guy, scrap. He's a professional scrap. Professionally scrap. As the game favored the 49ers early on and through most of it, that wouldn't last forever. As the Rams fought back through the whole game with backup stepping up and making big plays, the electricity of this punt return genuinely brought back memories I had when I first started liking football as a kid. It wasn't even housed, it was just some kid who never got a shot until now. This moment was his and he took full advantage of it. Even the final moment of this game left so much suspense. I mean, when teams start lateraling to try to win, you don't really have that feeling of, oh, anything could happen. Sometimes you get that feeling, and this was one of those times that I got that feeling. Like, they were getting the ball downfield and actually lateraling, not fumbling. It looked like there was plenty of open space. Looked great, and like the 49ers might have had a shot on the lateral up until that very faithful final moment I mentioned from the beginning. So no, this game doesn't decide who goes to the Super Bowl or playoff seeding or have any sort of record-breaking performance or anything like that. Honestly, in the scheme of things, this game didn't really matter at all. And that is why I loved it so much. It was a game that barely mattered, yet we see the Rams clawing to fight back and win, with a lot of their starters out. We see the crowd set on fire when a no-name player from nowhere returns a punt for a chunk of yards. We see the locker room hype. For a game that no one will remember in 2 weeks, this is one of the many reasons that I love football.